What is going on, everybody? Hope your Monday was a nice, productive day. If it wasn't productive, well, then I hope it was drama free. Unlike yourself here, I have a car not even 2 years old and the battery's already bad. Man, push button cars is like still not like I'm used to it, but you know, with your keys to the ignition when you could turn it on, that kind of felt like a little bit more feedback, like I could designate the problem to this or that. But with the push button, I'm just hearing a click, 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 click. What the hell is going on? I mean, the day lamps are turning on and everything's working. Then I have to call my grumpy ass brother, and he comes and gives me a jump and starts right up. I'm thinking, this car is not even 2 years old. So luckily, my dealership took care of it. Other than that drama today, my day was great. Um, so one thing I wanted to cover, man, I don't know how many of y'all like. I don't normally do gossip shit on here. Anybody who's consistently watched my videos knows I don't pass judgment on others unless they're convicted or have been found to be proven guilty, then I'll mention it. But I've seen it pop up many times on Netflix, and maybe just I don't know what it was out of boredom or something. I'm like, let me check out this thing about R. Kelly. Now, you see, when I was in the music industry, I never met the guy because we were always like our producer's mentor was in Atlanta. So we're always back and forth to Atlanta, Denver. And R. Kelly was more like Chicago. So, these different factions of singers, they all have their, areas of operation. Like, Big Pun, Fat Joe, more like, NYC or Brooklyn. Same with Jay-Z or Nas. You know, down south where Atlanta's, they were repping at the time, and they were coming out with a lot of really good singers. I mean, not good singers, but good rappers. And I've told you plenty of times I wasn't really into hip hop, but meeting these people, they were cool as hell, cool as fuck. Actually, a lot of them were. Made some friends out of that. Um, and I'm watching this thing about that surviving R. Kelly, and the whole time I'm shaking my head because it's so fucking disturbing, man. That he has the balls to ask his tour manager, man, let's pray I can't stop myself. Dude, you know what the fuck you're doing when you're saying let's pray on this, because you just know somebody took one of your videos and is about to, you know, blow the door wide open on your ass. And, let me just add this to that. I've seen with my own eyes on more occasions how people who garner attention, whether it be, celebrities, celebrities as a whole, you know, people want to get close to that. People want to, it's like back then we didn't have, I think maybe MySpace was out. I don't remember exactly, but people weren't posting. People didn't, have all this, Twitter and all that. Like, oh, look at who I got to pick with, whatever. It wasn't like that back then. And so, sure was you know, maybe a little bit easier for him to flow under the radar as long as he did. I don't know. But I could attest to the fact that anyone in a position of, that celebrity spotlight on him, I mean, there were always groupies. And since, I was kind of I wasn't kind of, I was a man that, you know, is managing and telling these artists what they need to do, you know, I would be sure to remind them constantly that, look, you need to be careful because, number one, you don't know what this, you better be careful about STDs. That was the number one thing that was always on my mind, is that these dudes are going to catch some type of non-curable STD. And I'd also say, you got minors, and you know, some minors may come across looking like they're above 18, but you know, I don't know what is it the God, I always fucking forget that word. The statutes of limitation on, you know, um, that type of transgressions, but I mean, I made damn sure to put that in the ears of every person I ever worked with, whether it would have been from the, the promoting or the A&R work or, whatever. It's like, if you're even thinking in your mind, is this girl old enough? Don't fuck with it. Don't even go there. Just move on to someone else because somebody else is going to show you attention, no matter what, whether or not you've been a has been. If there's cameras on you, for a video shoot, you have all these girls there that are just waiting to garner your attention. And yeah, a lot of guys, from, the groups or from, the record label, we're just, sitting there just waiting on these guys to show them attention. And, it just, it brought back memories because as far as I could remember, there was never anybody that looked like a minor to me, but I wasn't 100% at every single recording session there was. If I already knew something was coming down the pipeline, I'd excuse myself and Brandon, or that was the sound engineer. He would come in and they would clean up, mix and master whatever that they had recorded, in the previous days or weeks or whatever. And back then weed was, not legalized yet, but it just smelled to high hell. Like, I hate the smell of weed. I don't like. I used to love drinking, but I hated weed. I hated the way it made me feel. I hated the whole getting all dry mouth and hungry, and like there was maybe one time out of the 6 times that I tried it that was I laughed my ass off and all that, but other than that, like, they'd be like, "Oh, you're a lightweight, you're laughing." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a lightweight." And like the 5th time I tried it, and the last time I tried it, it's like, nah, this shit ain't for me. Like, I can't do this anymore, so I stopped right there. Um, but you know, watching some of these girls coming in and out of the studio always concerned me, and for this dude knowing how old these little girls were makes me fucking sick to my stomach, man. I mean, I cannot stop shaking my head at how many people, all of these girls came forward. And I really never paid attention about it. I mean, I remember when Chappelle came out with, him, pretending to be R. Kelly, urinating on a girl or something like that. And I didn't really put two and two together because I never was a fan of R. Kelly. Um, yes, I know this might come across bad, but I was never a fan of Aaliyah either. But like, to me, she was so what's the word, overrated in my opinion. Okay, just in my opinion, I thought Foxy Brown was better than Aaliyah, but Aaliyah was more of a singer. But I mean, Foxy Brown was, to me, she was that girl could out rap most dudes. And I don't know why she didn't make it big because Jay Z is the one who had signed her, appeared alongside her in her first music video. Uh, but to me, Aaliyah just wasn't like, I liked her in the movie Queen of the Damned. It looked like she was definitely made for movies, and it's a tragedy what happened to her and Left Eye because TLC came from our producers, our producer uh, mentor, and this dude, helped find Usher, TLC. If you listen at the end of the Daisy Duke song when they're throwing out shout outs, they'll say his name, not our producers, but our producer's mentor. They'll say his name that you probably never heard before, but I'm not gonna shine any light on them fools anymore. Like I used to say their names openly. The only other person that I've ever openly said that I had to deal with was Catherine Bruton, but she doesn't need any, any light shine on her because, she's the head of BMI, which is a publishing company, which is a big deal. Um, but after her, like I said, a brief moment of just having to waste my fucking Christmas day to go pick her ass up from the airport to drop her off at our studios to meet with our producer. And that was my Christmas one year. So I was like, you know, this is what you're giving up. Your dream. Your dream, you have to be totally committed to it. I was, and I had a lot more good times than bad. But like I said, I just wanted to share my thoughts because I know this R. Kelly shit is old. I know that he, is already in prison, and he's not going to be having the time of his life, I guess. But I'm sure he already got rolled out onto other, cell blocks and all that. So he's probably, protective cell blocks with, the rest of the child molesters and all that stuff. But I mean, it just really, really struck a chord, and I just really wanted to mention it real quick for those who are more in the know of me. And with that being said, I wanted to turn back to this very interesting sheriff. He shares a lot of what goes on in his county and of other officers who, have their hands in helping him catch, not just child predators, but, the indecencies of men. And this is one good example.
Well, we only had 2 from out of state this time. But here's what is important to understand, and I want the parents to understand this. These aren't traditional criminals. 9 of the 12 of these folks don't have a criminal history. Did you hear what I said? 9 of the 12 don't have a criminal history. But what they are doing, these evil people, are lurking online and grooming children online to engage them in sexual conduct. 4 of the arrests traveled. The others, as you'll hear in a minute, provided very raucous communication, sent pictures, inappropriate pictures, nude pictures, action photos of sexual conduct to what they thought was 13, 14, 15-year-old little girls or little boys. So let me introduce you to some of them. This is Lawrence New. He lives on the Lakeland Highlands Road in Lakeland. He thought that he was traveling to have sex with a 13-year-old child. That's right. He came from South Lakeland to our undercover location at the far northeast end of the county, thinking that he was going to have sex. He said he cherished the idea about teaching this 13-year-old girl about sex.
Oh my God.
He sent nudes and action film of him doing inappropriate things. His wife of 7 years was in another room sleeping whenever he did this. I'm sorry. She was in another room when he did this, and he had to wait for her to go to sleep so he could sneak out of the house to engage what he thought was a 13-year-old child.
Jeez.
So let me focus on this a minute. He's in one room, his wife's in another room. He's sending all kinds of ugly things to what he thinks is a 13-year-old child. Then he leaves after she falls asleep and travels all the way across the county. He confessed. We've got him locked up in jail. He's the owner of Omnia Inc., which deals in disposing medical supplies, used medical supplies. Oh, did I tell you Citrus County Sheriff's Office also has a criminal charge waiting against him as well? But we've got him locked up here now. So this is not new for him. He's 67 years old, and he's a deviant. He's a child pedophile. He's a pervert. And now he's a jailbird. Then there's Christopher Belize. He's 33. He's from Tampa. He sent explicit photos thinking he was sending them to a 14-year-old child. And he told her, I don't want to get in trouble, so let's keep this between us. Where does he work? He doesn't work. You see, he's at home on disability and SSI. That's right. So while all of us are going to work, earning money, paying our taxes, he's getting our taxpayers' money to sit at home and groom little children online. He didn't travel, but he instructed what he thought was the little 14-year-old girl to destroy the messages and the pictures because I don't want to get in trouble. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, what would an operation be? Either a pornography investigation, or a predator operation, or a human trafficking operation without a Disney employee. We always have a Disney employee, sometimes more.
Okay, to the credit of this, there is one of these conferences that I sat through where I watched him, and 4 of his deputies were fired because of misconduct. He's setting this Disney problem, like, of course, like he's just blowing it up, like being hyperbolic about it. And so far, with this guy included in the last one I uploaded about this topic, that would now make it 4. So he's had 4 of his own deputies commit, evidence tampering that were arrested and fired, and now 4 Disney employees. You could find bad people in any corner of, the state or any part of the state, any part of the United States. Most of these people that do this shit for years are usually, have gained trust or the respect of others. They're in a position of, not necessarily authority, but they've garnered enough respect from the community that then they overstep those boundaries and thinks, okay, I can't be touched. I mean, you've seen it with R. Kelly, now you see it with, some sheriffs or officers, and this right here, I mean, there was a multitude of his own deputies. But no, I think that, am I making excuses for this shit? No, I'm not. That's just, I wonder if it just fuels their desire even more to be in a theme park like that, seeing children on a day-to-day basis, which is just fucking disgusting. I can't stand
This is Zachary Hudson. That's right, he's a bus driver for Disney. He did not travel, but he sent nude and lewd pictures of himself. He thought it was to a 15-year-old girl. And he said to her while grooming her, what we said could get us all in trouble. And he said how he would like to wrap his arms around and feel her small, tiny body. Then he said, are you ready for this? You can't make this stuff up. I don't want to sound creepy. Well, you just sounded creepy. So he reiterated to what he thought was this little girl that she needed to keep it quiet. It has to be our secret. Because he said, I could go to jail. He said, but I'd risk it for spending some time with you. I'd risk going to jail. Well, when we arrested him, he confessed. Oh, newsflash, this will make Disney extra happy. He was doing this while he was on the clock for Disney. So if your bus was running late at Disney, he was busy taking pictures of himself and talking trash to what he thought was a little girl.
Was that his Disney uniform in that photo?
Yes.
I couldn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Then there's Timothy King. He's 26.
Is there captions?
From Claremont. He rode a bike. Yes. Girl. He was busy taking pictures of himself and talking trash to what he thought was a little girl.
Was that his Disney unicorn in that photo?
Yes.
Unicorn in that photo, little girl unicorn in that photo.
Then there's Timothy King. He's 26, from Claremont. He rode a bike. That's right, he traveled. He rode a bike. This dude was on a mission. So you might ask the sheriff, Sheriff, how far did he ride a bike to have what he thought was sex with a 15-year-old child? 10 miles. Did you hear me? 10 miles. And he said, sometimes I get excited. He didn't use those terms, but I thought I would. He used much more graphic terms. He confessed. He said, I don't have any friends. And he was very cautious when he arrived at the house. He wanted to know about cameras. Are there any cameras? Yep, there's cameras. We got your picture. In fact, we got lots of pictures. We got pictures with your clothes on.
Oh, God.
Anyway. Then there's Zachary Clark from Tampa. He works armed security for Brink's National Guard. That's right, that was his job. So the next time you see a Brink's truck and they jump out armed to pick up the loot from the store, who knows what he's doing behind closed doors. He traveled. He thought he was going to have sex with a 15-year-old child. Boy, was he surprised when the door opened and there was sheriff's detectives and police officers to arrest him. He said he was kind of antisocial and he just did this to meet new people. He said, but don't worry, I didn't mean it. I was going to tell her mom. Well, that's as good an excuse as any when you're in a lot of trouble. This guy's 62. His name's Frank Butler. He's from Palm Beach Gardens. He's an administrator for BSG Hospitality. But he was in the Orlando area at a resort. So, hey, he thought he would confront a 13-year-old female. So he started the communication and he traveled. That's right. He traveled from the resort to meet what he thought was a 13-year-old female. You know what's interesting about that? His wife of 27 years was at the resort, and he had to wait for her to go to sleep. So his wife of 27 years, who thinks they're at the resort to have a great weekend, she falls asleep, he sneaks out and goes to the undercover operation to have sex with a 13-year-old child, he thinks. But then he told the detective, once again, you can't make this up. He's not a bad guy. He said, I'm just not a bad guy. He said, you know what I was going to do is wait at the house with this child to tell her mom, as soon as she come home, what this child was doing. Yep. And then when we explained to him about the undercover detective and not the 13-year-old child, he said, well, what did I do wrong? It's just words. Well, newsflash, words matter. Words got you locked up. You were grooming a child. You agreed to meet a 13-year-old child because you, in fact, were going to have sex with that child. Why your wife of 27 years slept blissfully in the resort down the street. He says he doesn't prey on children. So anyway, we asked him what his wife would think about all of this. He said, you know, my wife wouldn't subscribe to this. That's why I had to wait until she went to sleep. This is a stereotype of a predator and a pedophile. Then there's Michael Ochino from Kissimmee. He's a forklift driver for PepsiCo. He had conversations with 3 different undercover detectives from the police department and the sheriff's office. That's right. He thought he was talking to 13 and 14-year-old children during his conversation. He said that he would like to stay with them. He talked about making babies with the children. He didn't travel. But then he said something that was really, really, really scary. You see, our undercover detectives said that they were down here with their mom on vacation and talked about, during the conversation, the relationship. He said, look, you can stay with me, and here's how you do it. You walk away without your mom seeing you. She won't know where you are. You're from another part of the country. And then you wait for me, and I'll pick you up. Is that scary or what? He was giving what he thought to be a 13-year-old little girl directions in how to escape from her mom, and he was going to pick her up. Then what? What's next? He's 57 years of age. Here's a guy that didn't travel, but he communicated from St. Clair, Michigan. He's unemployed. He thought he was talking to a 14-year-old child. He would say things like he thought she was sexy. He instructed this child how to delete their text. And he told her, I can't resist how young you are. He's in the St. Clair County Jail on our warrant, where we were assisted by the police authorities there arresting him. Well, Roger, buddy, welcome to Florida, because this is where you're coming. It's not going to be a vacation, unless, of course, you consider the state prison an extended stay resort. And then there's George Matthews. Here's what's interesting about old George. He's 66 years of age. He's from Ozark, Alabama. Are you ready for this? His job? He works at Fort Rucker. He's a Black Hawk mechanic.
Wow.
He works for M1 Support Services, which is a civilian company contracted to work on the Black Hawks. He sent very explicit images of himself to what he thought was a 13-year-old child. He did not travel but he said he would like to. He made statements to the 13-year-old that he was old enough to be her grandfather. And then he engaged in some very nasty chat. Well, when he came to work the next day and he crossed onto the base, the military police arrested him.
Oh, shit, maybe federal charges?
By the way, that base, if you're not familiar with Fort Rucker, is the Army Aviation War Fighting Center. He had chats with this 13-year-old not only while he was at home, but also while he was at work. I hope he didn't get so carried away with his chats that he forgot to put all the parts back on the Black Hawk helicopters. That could be a real problem. He's in the Dell County Jail. And he's not going to be flying here on a helicopter. I'll guarantee that. All right, I would like to turn this over to a dear friend of mine and colleague. We worked together at the sheriff's office for 25 years until retirement age came, and then he went to be the police chief in Auburndale, and made me very proud to see one of my captains and one of the most talented people we've ever had work with us go on to be the police chief. Chief?
So 25 years here and 10 years at Auburndale, 35 years in this business. And these things still bother me, and they make my stomach turn. And if you're a parent and you have kids, or you're a grandparent and you have kids that are dear to you, do what you can to protect them, because the internet is a dangerous place. Make sure that you're monitoring them. Make sure that you're having conversations with them. There are a lot of nefarious actors out there, and we just want parents and grandparents, people who are responsible for kids, to be aware of that, and to talk to their kids about it. It's an important conversation to have. So thankful to the sheriff and his people for putting this operation together, and always thankful for the opportunity to be a team player and a partner to keep this county safe. So thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we have Derek. Derek Blanton is with the Winter Haven Police Department. In fact, his father and I patrolled as deputies way, way, way back in the day. And so it makes me exceptionally proud to see Derek follow in the footsteps of his dad. Derek?
Good afternoon. The members of the Winter Haven Police Department are more than happy to have participated in this operation. We'll be more than happy to participate in future operations that may come about. We're dedicated to doing our best to protect our kids in these situations. And I think it serves as a good reminder for both parents and the bad guys that, you know, we have really good detectives. So does the sheriff's office and Auburndale Police Department that are really good at their jobs, and they won't hesitate to put you in jail if you're involved in this type of situation. Thank you to the sheriff's office and Auburndale Police Department for also participating in this and having us participate as well. Thank you.
Our folks collectively are simply the very best in the business at investigating and searching out and looking for these predators. But parents, these folks will walk boldly into your home while you're there and groom your children if you don't know what your children are doing online. With that, is there any questions?
You know, and the questions are just the kind that you expect. Nothing more, nothing less. And, oh, God. You know, it makes me scared because I myself am a father. And, of course, my daughter, well, not of course, because you guys wouldn't know, but I have a very, very young daughter. Not old enough to really navigate or be on the internet. But when she does get to that age, it really freaks the living hell out of me that there's still people like this who think that they could get away with shit like this. And, you know, I've never been one to be against the cops. I mean, just because you have a handful of cops that are, you know, that love, you know, the authority, that get a power trip off of it. You know, for every one of those, you have 10, 20 cops that are just, you know, they don't let that get to their head. And for those cops, I applaud them, because I can't imagine what his detectives have to read, have to look at, have to document. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork that goes into that, I can imagine. And to have to sift through all that nastiness is just, you know, I don't blame them for, you know, seeking some type of therapy, you know, when they have a big operation like this, you know, end and have to go on to the next one. I mean, I know I'd be scarred for life if I ever heard of, you know, of having to directly be involved with something like this. Just, it makes my stomach sick just to even listen to this. And I'm just shining the light on this as far as my channel goes to parents. You know what? I know it might be a pain in the ass. I know our children might get, you know, all bent out of shape, but really, really, like they said, monitor what your kids are doing online. You never know. I mean, since the advent of, you know, the internet, it's just, while it's probably brought more good than bad, it's just awful. But not only that, it's very easy for these children to get mixed up with the wrong kind of people. So, in saying that, I just wanted to run one more of these videos on this topic, on this subject, just because, like I said, I for months, maybe even a year, I just kept on seeing that Surviving R. Kelly, and I didn't pay it no mind, but when I watched it, it just made me fucking sick to my stomach. And I had to, just like, a public announcement, public awareness, announcement, like, anyone who has, children from the ages of 11 on up, just protect them, watch over them, be with them. It's just, it's sickening. So let's see if I could find something a little bit more on a lighter note, all right? Until that time, this is Cisco. Peace out. I will be uploading this here shortly, and yeah, thank you guys for watching as always.